Ambassador Talvek stood motionless on the bridge of the celestial Voyager, his opalescent scales shifting from their usual confident gold to an uncertain shade of green. After 3 centuries of leading first contact missions, he thought he'd seen it all. He was wrong. Ambassador, rasped junior analyst Narev from the deck, their neural interface crackling. The readings, they don't add up. They can't add up. Talvek signaled to the med team, who quickly attended to the fallen analyst. The neural overload was troubling, but what unsettled him more was its cause. He turned to face the main view screen, studying the deceptively simple vessels orbiting the green-blue planet below. "Show me the sensor logs," he commanded, feeling his secondary hearts begin to race. "Raw data only." The holographic display flared to life, revealing data from their scans. Primitive spacecraft relying on radio waves, chemical thrusters, and metal hulls that would crumble under a single blast of even the most basic weaponry. It was exactly what they'd expected from intercepting the planet's broadcasts, exactly what they had prepared for. "Supreme Commander Rylan," Talvek called out to his military counterpart, keeping his voice carefully neutral. "Join me for a moment?" The formidable Rylan strode forward, her battle-worn scales a deep red of controlled aggression. "Ambassador, we're wasting time. These primitives barely have orbital technology. Standard protocol dictates." "Look at this energy reading," Talvek interrupted, highlighting a particular data stream. "What do you see?" Ryland's scales briefly flickered with annoyance before shifting to pale yellow in surprise. That's impossible. The pattern is too precise." "Precisely," Talvek murmured, overlaying multiple sensor feeds. "Each reading is exactly what we'd expect from a developing spacefaring race. No anomalies, not a single deviation. In 3 centuries of first contact missions, I've never seen anything so perfect." A sudden burst of static filled the bridge speakers as one of the human ships hailed them. "Incoming transmission, sir," reported the communications officer. "Primitive radio waves, exactly what we anticipated." Talvek's scales darkened, rippling with a cautious purple. "Play it." The voice came through clear, professional, speaking in flawless galactic standard, a language humanity should not even have known existed. "This is Captain Maya Torres of the United Earth Vessel Horizon. We come in peace and welcome peaceful contact." Ryland's scales flared red again. "It's a trap." "No," Talvek cut her off, his gaze fixed on the medical vessel in the foreground, a scratched, faded ship that looked utterly utilitarian, yet stirred a primal sense of danger deep within him. "Not a trap, a test. Everything we're seeing is deliberate. They're showing us exactly what we expect. The question is, what are they hiding?" As if in response, their sensors glitched for just a microsecond. Talvek glimpsed something in that instant. Energy readings defying known physics, hull compositions that should not exist, power readings that made their fleets might look childish. Then it was gone, replaced once more by the illusion of a primitive fleet. Talvek turned to Rylan, his scales now flashing with both awe and apprehension. "Supreme Commander, I think we may need to reconsider our approach. These aren't mere primitives. They're masters of deception. Your orders, Ambassador?" "Send our response," Talvek said, his scales hardening to a resolute gold. "And pray we haven't already made a grave error." In the Horizon's bridge, Captain Maya Torres kept her expression composed as her fingers hovered over the holographic controls, though a bead of sweat formed on her brow. Beneath her foam medical station, the ship's real combat systems waited, dormant but ready. "They're scanning us again," reported her executive officer, Commander Elias Grant, his voice low. "Third sweep in the last hour. These aliens are thorough." Maya nodded. "Status on our masking systems?" "Holding perfectly. They believe we're a refitted passenger vessel with basic medical gear," Elias confirmed, glancing at one reading. "Though their young analyst seems especially focused on Bay 3. Maya clenched her jaw. Bay 3 housed the Horizon's quantum torpedo launcher, disguised as an advanced medical chamber. The mask would hold, but the analyst's persistence was unsettling. The bridge door opened, admitting the alien delegation led by Talvek, his scales flashing a steady shade of blue-gold. Beside him was the keen-eyed junior analyst. "Captain Torres," Talvek's translator produced flawless English. Junior analyst Yarrick is very interested in your medical facilities. Of course, Maya replied smoothly, maintaining a neutral smile. Though I should warn you, our technology is quite modest compared to your own. Jarrek's scales flickered with barely concealed curiosity. Actually, Captain, I had some questions regarding the energy fluctuations in your Bay 3. They're unusual for medical equipment. She caught Elias's discreet warning signal. The young alien had detected something, not enough to compromise them, but enough to raise doubts. Unusual? Maya feigned concern. I hope our recent diagnostic upgrade isn't malfunctioning. We've had some issues integrating the new system. Yarrick approached a medical console, his scales alive with intense focus. These fluctuations resemble a controlled quantum reaction, not a diagnostic scanner. Ambassador Talvek placed a restraining hand on Jarrek's shoulder, his scales dimming in apology. Forgive us, Captain. Yarrick is enthusiastic. Perhaps we might focus on practical matters? But Yarrick persisted. If I could just run a more detailed scan. You forget yourself, Talvek warned, his voice carrying a subtle authority that transcended species. Jarrek's scales dulled to a subdued gray. Captain Torres brushed off the interruption with a smile, noting that Talvek understood their ruse, yet played along. He was a seasoned diplomat who recognized the dance. Would you like a tour of our primary care unit? She offered, diverting them from Bay 3. We recently updated our trauma protocols. As she led the delegation through the ship, Maya exchanged a meaningful glance with Elias. The aliens weren't as convinced of human inferiority as they pretended, and humanity wasn't nearly as primitive as it seemed. This was going to be an interesting mission. On the bridge of the Zakthar flagship Infinite Resolve, Supreme Commander Ryland stood proudly, her scales gleaming. The vessel represented the pinnacle of her people's military prowess. 3 kilometers of alloy and cutting-edge weaponry. Observe Earth representatives, she announced to the human guests. This is our neural-linked combat system. Lieutenant Eric Shun and his small team watched, their expressions appropriately impressed, though Eric's eyes lingered on the neural panels rather than the weapon displays. The system allows flawless crew synchronization, Ryland continued, her scales rippling with pride. No other civilization has achieved this perfection. Eric raised his hand, an innocent gesture that made several Zakthar officers chuckle at its simplicity. Commander, have you solved the quantum desynchronization issue in your neural pathways? The bridge fell silent. Ryland's scales flashed from gold to yellow in shock. How could you know that? Demanded Yarrick, still wary of these humans. Eric smiled innocently. Oh, just neural theory. We had similar issues before we moved to quantum consciousness integration. Before anyone could react, an alarm cut through the silence. An asteroid had shifted course, now hurtling toward the fleet. Collision imminent, a Zakthar officer shouted. The Infinite Resolve's massive engines powered up, but the ship moved with excruciating slowness. Then, in a maneuver that defied explanation, the Horizon, supposedly a repurposed medical ship, split into 3 sections. Each moved with coordinated precision, positioning themselves around the asteroid. For a moment, reality seemed to twist, and the asteroid vanished, dissolved into harmless energy. As the Horizon reassembled into its unassuming form, the silence was thick. Supreme Commander Ryland's scales turned pale with shock. That was no neural link system. Eric shrugged modestly. Oh, neural links are limiting. Our ships operate on quantum consciousness integration now. They're extensions of us. Ambassador Talvek, who had been watching quietly, finally spoke. You've been hiding your true capabilities. Captain Torres met his gaze. As have you, Ambassador. I noticed your ship's weapons charged the moment we arrived. Talvek's scales shifted in respect. It appears we have much to learn from each other. Indeed, Torres replied. Would you like to know how we actually solved quantum desynchronization? As Eric began a technical explanation that captivated the alien engineers, Maya and Talvek exchanged a knowing look. The real first contact was just beginning. Ambassador Talvek watched the human vessel, Horizon, drifting innocuously alongside his flagship in orbit above the blue-green planet below. A lesser being might mistake it for an ordinary ship, a quaint relic from an underdeveloped civilization. But Talvek, with centuries of first contact experience, knew better. The humans had peeled back the mask just enough, revealing a sliver of their true capabilities. This was no coincidence, and he needed to find out why. Ambassador, Supreme Commander Ryland's voice snapped him back to the present. She stood at his side, scales a mix of warning red and distrustful yellow. We've allowed these humans an extraordinary level of access. My analysts are already questioning whether our own security could be compromised. Talvek nodded thoughtfully. A valid concern, Ryland. They seem almost too eager to show us their technology. They hold the advantage here, and that alone tells me they're protecting something far beyond what they're showing us. Then it's time we look deeper. Ryland's voice hardened. With your approval, I'd like to order an unannounced inspection of their vessel. Talvek hesitated, studying the horizon through the view screen, its faint lights twinkling in the dark void. A heavy-handed approach will only push them to be even more cautious. No, we must find a way to understand their intentions by reading between the lines. Then let me read them, Ryland insisted, her scales brightening with barely contained aggression. I'll take a team over, make it look like a routine follow-up from our last visit. They know we're suspicious already, Talvek considered, then inclined his head. Proceed, but tread lightly. And if anything seems unusual, report back immediately. The humans are capable of things we do not yet understand. Ryland saluted, her formality reasserted as she turned and issued orders to her officers. Within moments, she and a squad of her most trusted tactical officers were prepped and ready, boarding a shuttle for the horizon. UES Horizon. Captain Maya Torres kept a calm expression as she monitored her crew's controlled panic. The Zactor had notified them of an incoming, routine inspection. Commander Grant, she called to her executive officer, who was hurrying across the bridge. Any sign of interference with our systems? Grant glanced up from his console, his expression grave. None so far. But given how focused they are on probing our medical bays, I suspect they'll come with enhanced scanners this time. Maya nodded. Have the team put our decoy systems on standby. I don't want them triggering any alarms, but if those scanners get close to Bay 3, we need to be ready. Grant moved quickly, relaying her orders to the crew. They had rehearsed this scenario countless times in simulations, yet every person on board understood how much was riding on their performance today. Maya activated her communicator, linking directly to Lieutenant Eric Chun in engineering. Lieutenant, we're about to receive visitors. How's our shielding holding up? Eric's voice crackled over the link. Still functioning perfectly, Captain. The energy masking field will give off a faint signature, just like an outdated diagnostic system. Exactly as planned. Good. Ryland and her people won't let anything slip by. Keep everyone alert and our real systems locked down. Maya ended the link, steeling herself. The Zactor were formidable, but humans had long mastered the art of appearing far more vulnerable than they were. A faint shudder ran through the ship, signaling the docking of the Zactor shuttle. Maya took a steadying breath and gestured for her XO to join her as she prepared to greet her alien guests. The airlock opened, and Supreme Commander Ryland strode onto the bridge, her scarlet scales casting an imposing glow under the ship's lighting. Behind her, a team of silent tactical officers fanned out, each wearing a Neuralink suit that controlled both their movements and weaponry with machine precision. Welcome aboard, Supreme Commander, Maya said smoothly, giving a nod of respect. Captain Torres. Ryland's voice was calm, but her eyes swept across the bridge, as if expecting to catch a glimpse of the ship's true capabilities. We are here for a brief follow-up inspection. It will not take long. Of course, Maya replied, gesturing toward the console. We're here to assist in any way. Ryland turned and nodded to her lead analyst, a wiry officer named Larvek. He activated a scanner embedded into his neural suit, his focus on the ship's data flow and energy signatures. Maya watched as Larvek's scanner flickered across different wavelengths, tracing energy signatures that would appear perfectly normal for any standard vessel. She gave a subtle glance to Grant, who remained expressionless by her side. Larvek, Ryland ordered, Start with the medical bay. That's where we observed unique energy patterns. Larvek's eyes flicked up, his scales brightening with barely concealed enthusiasm. He started toward Bay 3, his scanner active and searching. Would you like an escort? Maya offered, her tone friendly but firm. Ryland declined with a curt nod, gesturing for her team to continue. No need, Captain. We won't disturb your operations any more than necessary. Maya watched as they approached Bay 3. Her heart pounded as Larvek's scanner whirred quietly, the energy masking shield disguising the bay's actual purpose with a simple holographic overlay of medical equipment. Larvek's scanner paused, and a thin line appeared between his brow scales, a sign of confusion in his species. Commander, he reported, I'm picking up an unusual energy fluctuation again. Ryland's eyes sharpened, her scales dimming in warning. She took a step closer to Maya, her voice edged with suspicion. Captain, I'd like to run a deeper scan of this area. Maya kept her expression neutral, though every fiber of her being was tense. As I mentioned before, our equipment integration has had a few hiccups, Commander. I hope you understand that the energy readings you're detecting may simply be a glitch. Ryland's scales pulsed with a hard red as she nodded to Larvek. Proceed. Larvek adjusted his scanner, recalibrating it to penetrate the energy field. Maya exchanged a quick, subtle glance with Grant. The decoy program would hold, but if Larvek went any further, there was a chance he'd detect something they couldn't explain away. Captain, you might want to see this, Larvek murmured, his scales shifting to a curious silver. Grant quickly interjected. It's our most recent diagnostic equipment, Commander, he said, an undertone of calm deflection in his voice. We're still adjusting its resonance signatures. As you may know, such equipment can sometimes cause unexpected readings. But Larvek's curiosity was not so easily dismissed. His fingers danced over his console, his scans growing more precise as his gaze fixed on the bay. Maya, assessing the mounting tension, decided to take a risk. If I may suggest, Commander, she said smoothly, perhaps we could offer a demonstration in one of our primary care units. You'll find the equipment just as capable, though better suited to standard examinations. Ryland narrowed her eyes, but after a tense moment, she relented, nodding to Larvek to cease his scans. Very well, Captain, but we will be watching your operations with even greater interest going forward. Celestial Voyager. Talvek had watched the entire inspection unfold via the neural feeds of his officers. He leaned back, contemplative, his scales shifting to a dark indigo of focused consideration. The humans had deflected every attempt at a deeper investigation, yet they did so with such subtlety that he almost admired their skill. His thoughts were interrupted by a soft chime, a signal from one of his analysts on the bridge. Ambassador, new energy signatures are appearing in orbit, well beyond our known coordinates. Talvek's gaze sharpened. Show me? The display flickered, revealing the faint outlines of a fleet of vessels moving silently through the dark expanse. They were well beyond the sensor range of the horizon and his own fleet, yet unmistakably powerful. He glanced down, noting that they bore the hallmarks of advanced technology. Too advanced, even for the humans. Who are they? Ryland's voice, tense with alarm, came through his neural link. Talvek's mind raced. There was only one explanation that made sense. He had to know if the humans were aware of this threat. He opened a direct link to the horizon, his voice unwavering. Captain Torres, it appears we have unexpected company. On the bridge of the horizon, Maya's eyes widened as the display filled with the outline of approaching ships. With a steadying breath, she met Talvek's gaze on the view screen. Ambassador Talvek, she replied, her voice carrying an edge of determination. It seems our negotiations are about to become significantly more complicated. The Zakthar fleet hung motionless in the void, their formations flawless, yet every officer's attention was fixed on the approaching ships. Talvek watched the strange vessels emerge from the blackness, their sleek, faceted surfaces reflecting no light, shifting shapes against the star-strewn backdrop. Every instinct told him these were neither human nor Zakthar. Ambassador, Ryland's voice cut through his neural link, barely concealing the alarm in her tone. Preliminary scans indicate unknown alloys, energy signatures that don't align with any known tech. Their drives, I can't even get a read on what propulsion they're using. Ryland, stand by. Talvek scales shifted to an uneasy indigo. These ships didn't match any civilization in their records, neither friend nor foe. And they were closing in fast. On the US horizon, Captain Maya Torres surveyed the scene, her face tense. Commander Grant, can you identify them? Grant shook his head. Nothing from our known records, Captain. Energy readings are all over the spectrum, fluctuating like they're masking their true signatures. The horizon sensors hummed as Grant expanded the scan, seeking even a trace of familiarity in the alien craft. But instead of revealing more, the sensors detected a faint pulse, a signal emitted not toward the horizon, but directly to the Zakthar flagship, as if inviting them to respond. Ambassador Talvek. Maya's voice sounded over the channel, controlled but with a trace of urgency. Whoever these newcomers are, they appear to be targeting your fleet. Talvek studied her, reading more than her words. The humans had encountered this technology before. He glanced back at his tactical officer. Establish a secure channel to Captain Torres. The rest of the fleet is to hold position and refrain from engaging unless ordered. Moments later, a private connection opened between the celestial Voyager and the horizon. Captain Torres, Talvek began, his tone measured. I'd like to know what else you know about these intruders. Maya's gaze held steady. Our knowledge is limited, Ambassador. We've encountered fleeting traces of this technology on deep space missions beyond our territories. Unidentified vessels, advanced enough to avoid all but our highest grade sensors, and always vanishing before we could intercept. She paused, choosing her next words carefully. They don't communicate, but they do observe. Talvek processed this, scales rippling into a thoughtful, muted green. And yet, here they are observing both of our fleets together. What do they want? That's what we've never figured out, Maya admitted. They appear briefly, remain distant, then leave. We have no records of hostile actions, though we never let them get this close. Talvek weighed this, aware of Ryland's scrutiny on the main deck as she monitored the ship's approach. The Zakthar commander wasn't one to wait and see, especially not with unidentified vessels this close. His private communicator buzzed as Ryland sent him a coded message. We need permission to prepare our defenses. He turned his attention back to Maya, choosing his words with care. Captain, this is new territory for both of us. My instinct tells me they've shown themselves deliberately. If you're open to it, I propose we coordinate, avoiding any preemptive moves that might be interpreted as aggression. Maya's expression shifted to one of reluctant agreement. Agreed. Let's send a unified response. Commander Grant, prepare a low-energy beacon, coded to show we're both holding position. Open frequencies to broadcast the beacon in our mutual neutral zone. Grant worked quickly, calibrating the beacon. Within moments, both the celestial Voyager and the horizon transmitted a shared signal, a cautious invitation for peaceful engagement. But before their message had fully broadcast, the newcomers responded, not in words but in action. The alien fleet split, moving with unnatural precision, surrounding the human and Zakthar vessels in a coordinated web of ships that pulsed with energy. As their formation tightened, each of the alien ships began emitting a soft, rhythmic pulse, creating an intricate, synchronized pattern that filled the space between the fleets with faint, shimmering light. On the celestial Voyager, Ryland's scales burned an anxious red. This isn't just a show of force. They're sending a message. But as the pulses increased in intensity, something else emerged, a faint disturbance in the very fabric of space. Talvek watched transfixed as the ripples converged, coalescing into a circular portal, dark and shimmering, suspended between the two fleets. Is that a wormhole? Grant muttered, his voice barely a whisper. Possibly, Maya replied, her face pale but resolute. But to where? Then, a message appeared on both the celestial Voyager and the horizon, delivered through a direct, untraceable line. Enter, or observe. Talvek's scales shifted to a deep violet, a Zakthar hue signaling a decision that could not be unmade. He keyed in a private line to the horizon. Captain Torres, it seems we're at a crossroads. I'm open to entering. If you're prepared to join us. Maya glanced at Grant, who gave a single, firm nod. Her voice steady, she replied, Ambassador, we'll accompany you. We're in this together. Moments later, through the portal, the celestial Voyager and Horizon emerged into an alien star system, surrounded by glittering stars and vast celestial bodies. But all eyes were drawn to the massive station before them. It hovered in the void, larger than any structure either human or Zacthar had ever seen, an intricate mesh of latticed metal and glowing energy fields. The station seemed ancient and impossibly advanced, with patterns etched across its surface and symbols neither species could decipher. Both ships held their position, weapons inactive but ready, as the alien fleet spread out to encircle the station in a protective ring. Talvek's eyes widened as a massive holographic figure appeared before them, its form a shifting silhouette of swirling light and energy. Welcome, representatives of the Zacthar and humanity. The voice resonated through both ships, clear and unearthly. You stand before the Luminat Concord, observers of the galaxy's younger civilizations. Maya took a sharp breath, feeling the weight of centuries of hidden knowledge emanating from the being before her. Luminat Concord, she replied, choosing her words with care. What purpose brings us here? The figure paused, as though measuring her response. You are the first to witness our existence directly, chosen from among countless species. Your technological feats and recent alliance have raised interest. We offer insight in exchange for observation. Observation? Talvek's voice was laced with skepticism. You've observed us without consent. What do you mean by insight? The Luminat figure shifted, now radiating a gentle light. You exist on the brink of potential conflict. Your alliance today, tenuous as it may be, marks a rare alignment of two powerful forces. We have seen civilizations collapse before they achieve unity. Others thrive only through harmony. The figure paused as if calculating. We will grant each of you the knowledge to advance beyond your current state, but only if you agree to one condition. What condition? Maya asked, her voice steady but wary. The knowledge must be shared between your species, a reciprocal exchange, without restriction. The Luminat's form pulsed, as if to emphasize the gravity of this condition. Only then will you access the wisdom needed to prevent your own destruction. Silence fell over both ships as Talvek and Maya exchanged glances over their comms. Each understood the opportunity and the danger. Neither species had ever considered revealing their full capabilities to another. Yet before them lay the knowledge that could reshape the fate of both civilizations. Talvek's scales shifted from violet to a rare silver, the color of trust. Captain Torres, he said, his voice uncharacteristically soft, I believe the future of both our peoples lies in this decision. Shall we take the chance together? Maya nodded, her eyes bright with determination. Yes, Ambassador. Together, the Luminat's form pulsed brighter, casting light across both fleets. And with that, the exchange of knowledge began, illuminating both species in ways they had never imagined, and binding their fates together in the vast, uncharted reaches of the galaxy. The massive holographic figure of the Luminat hovered between the celestial Voyager and the US Horizon, its form shifting between colors and symbols as it projected raw streams of information into each ship's database. Talvek watched in stunned silence as data filled the screens around him, unveiling scientific equations, star maps, and propulsion blueprints far beyond anything the Zacthar had developed. On the horizon, Maya Torres and her crew stared in awe at the newfound knowledge appearing before them. This is revolutionary, murmured Commander Grant. Our understanding of quantum mechanics alone just took a 1,000-year leap, but not all eyes held wonder. Behind Maya, Lieutenant Commander Iverson, one of the more conservative officers, regarded the alien transmission with growing suspicion. He leaned close to Maya and lowered his voice. Captain, have we considered the risks? We're taking this information at face value. There's no guarantee these beings have our best interests at heart. Maya acknowledged his concern, though her eyes remained on the streaming data. Your concern is noted, Lieutenant Commander. But right now, this information could change everything for both humanity and the Zakthar. If we approach this carefully, it might be the key to peace. Meanwhile, on the Celestial Voyager, Talvek's tactical officer Rylan voiced a similar caution. Ambassador, the speed at which the data is being delivered, it feels intentional. Almost overwhelming. What if it's a trap? If we attempt to apply this knowledge too quickly, we could destabilize everything we know. Talvek's scales shimmered an uneasy blue. The Zakthar were no strangers to advanced technology, but the depth and complexity of the Luminat knowledge surpassed even their wildest aspirations. We must proceed cautiously, Rylan. This knowledge is a gift, but we cannot afford arrogance. Just as the flow of data slowed, the Luminat's figure shimmered, shifting to the center of the projection room, and spoke once more, its voice resonant and final. We have bestowed upon you knowledge that will ensure your survival, if applied wisely. But know this, any attempt to use it for dominance over one another will invite consequences. You are bound, Zakthar and human, by an accord that transcends the stars themselves. The hologram faded, leaving both crews in a silence that buzzed with unspoken questions. Later aboard the Celestial Voyager, back in his quarters, Talvek paced restlessly. The walls were lined with tactical data, blueprints of the Luminat designs, and scans of the new energy configurations. His heartbeats thudded with the weight of what lay ahead, sharing power that the Zakthar had previously guarded jealously. He called a meeting with Rylan and the senior officers, their faces reflecting both anticipation and worry. We cannot ignore the significance of what we have received, Talvek began, his voice firm. But we must also consider the threat to our autonomy. The Luminat made it clear, use this knowledge to control or dominate, and there will be repercussions. Rylan shifted uneasily, her scales showing a faint red of distrust. Do we truly believe the humans will honor such an accord? They may seem united with us now, but when their scientific teams get their hands on this data, she let her words hang in the air, and her point was clear. Talvek met her gaze with a steely look. Which is why it's imperative that we move first, Rylan. Not to break the alliance, but to ensure the Zakthar aren't left vulnerable. We will begin applying the Luminat knowledge to enhance our defenses. Quietly, meanwhile, on the US horizon, in a dimly lit briefing room, Maya faced her own set of challenges. Commander Grant, Lieutenant Commander Iverson, and a handful of the Horizon's most trusted officers sat before her, looking to her for guidance. This is an opportunity unlike anything humanity has ever seen, Maya said, her tone resolute. But we're not alone. We must honor the alliance, at least as long as it is genuine. Iverson's voice cut through, skepticism barely hidden. Captain, we can't forget that the Zakthar are known for their secrecy and their ruthlessness. What's to stop them from exploiting this data before we have a chance to secure our own position? Trust, Lieutenant Commander, Maya said firmly, and we will monitor for any sign of aggression. But if we breach this agreement, we risk alienating not only the Zakthar, but potentially angering the Luminat. Our best course is to work with caution and transparency. Grant nodded, but Iverson's face remained hard. Understood, Captain, he replied, though a note of tension lingered in his voice. As Maya turned her gaze to the viewport, she couldn't shake the feeling that the newfound alliance was perched on a razor's edge. They had been given the greatest gift in the galaxy, but also the greatest test. Days later, the alliance held, but cracks were beginning to show. Minor disputes about data sharing turned into thinly veiled accusations. Talvek sensed it during each meeting with the human representatives. The mistrust lurking in their words, the way their eyes darted to every new piece of data they had to turn over. The humans were cautious, but Talvek knew they were hungry for the same power. Rylan approached him one evening, her scales a wary amber. Ambassador, my scans show the humans have begun adapting their ship's engines with the Luminat energy cores. They're implementing faster than anticipated. Talvek's eyes narrowed. If they're moving this fast, they're not sharing everything with us. They might be building an edge, preparing for an eventual betrayal. Orders, Ambassador? Talvek exhaled, gathering his thoughts. Increase surveillance on the humans' development. If they show signs of building a superior weapon system, we'll have to consider a preemptive course of action. But subtly, Rylan, we cannot alert them. Not yet. Meanwhile on Earth, back at the United Earth Strategic Command, Maya Torres had been summoned to an emergency meeting with the United Earth Council. She presented her report on the progress of integrating the Luminat technology and the growing suspicions surrounding the Zakthar's activities. "Are you suggesting we're at risk of an imminent attack, Captain?" asked Counselor Nash, his eyes sharp. Maya hesitated. "I'm saying we can't ignore the signs. The Zakthar are a proud, powerful race, and they may not take well to an alliance where they feel vulnerable. But if we prepare, stay on high alert, we may be able to prevent conflict." Counselor Huang nodded. "Captain Torres, if the Zakthar make any move that endangers humanity, your directive is clear. You're authorized to act in Earth's defense by any means necessary. We've invested too much to allow a surprise betrayal." The inevitable showdown. Only days later, both fleets, now fitted with Luminat enhancements, found themselves within range of one another on a distant research station orbiting a neutron star. It was the final day of a joint research mission, and Maya had sensed the rising tension from Talvek's team. She ordered her crew to maintain readiness, silently preparing for the worst. As Maya met with Talvek in a virtual conference, the conversation quickly grew terse. "Ambassador, we've detected irregular energy readings near your ship," she said, voice measured. "Are you conducting any unsanctioned tests?" Talvek's scales flashed with brief frustration. "Those readings are harmless, Captain. Our modifications are within our rights. Just as your crew's recent trials of the Luminat gravity drive should have been conducted with our oversight." Her patience thinning, Maya responded, "We are both here because of an agreement, Ambassador. I suggest we remember that." Talvek narrowed his eyes. "We are remembering it, Captain. But let's not pretend either of us are defenseless." The conversation cut off abruptly, and both officers returned to their respective command decks, fully aware of the thin line they were treading. Barely an hour later, the research station issued a distress call. An unknown object, potentially a rogue Luminat drone, was hurtling toward them, glowing with intense energy. Both the Celestial Voyager and the Horizon prepared to intercept. But as the object approached, the tension between the two fleets snapped. A single Zakthar vessel, mistaking a human scanning signal for a weapons lock, released a warning shot. Humanity's ships responded instinctively, deploying a line of defensive drones. As plasma pulses and energy fields clashed, the Celestial Voyager and the Horizon scrambled to gain control of the situation, their leaders watching in horror as their ships slid toward all-out war. Talvek and Maya both knew they had moments to act, or risk destroying the Alliance, and perhaps sealing the fates of their civilizations. But would their next move bridge the chasm, or deepen it beyond repair?